Hi, my name is Jonas. Imagine this situation. The weekend has started, it's time to make some great music, but all you can do is sit and stare at a blank screen or just noodle a little bit on your synthesizers. Nothing is coming up. I think everybody who creates music recognizes this problem. Sometimes you just need something to kickstart your inspiration. There are multiple solutions to this problem, and today I'm going to take a look at one of them. This is the Captain plugin suite by Mixed in Key. It consists of 5 plugins that focus on different parts of writing new music. You have Captain Chords for making interesting chord progressions, Captain Deep for bass lines, Captain Melody for creating melodies, and then Captain Beat, of course, for beats. And Captain Play is designed to help you stay in key while improvising on your keyboard. So let's start with creating a nice chord progression. I want to create a nice melancholic melodic track, so let's see if we can come up with some vibey chords. So this is the initial state of the Captain Chords plugin. There are a few things you have to set up first. You have to choose a key first. In this case, I'm going for G minor just to break out of the usual A and C minor keys that are easy to play in and that you usually end up with. In this case, we're going to go for something different. Then the next thing is, well, either draw in a progression yourself or play it in. But of course, the whole idea here is that we don't have inspiration at the moment and we want this plugin to help us. So what we're going to do is choose out of the progressions that are available in its library. And as you can see, there are quite a few of them. You can preview them by just clicking on them. Let's start with this 1174. Yeah, it could be interesting. So now we have this progression, well, in its most basic form loaded. It's currently playing on its internal engine. You can choose out of different sounds. Now it's defaulting to piano strings, but you have lots of other sounds. But what I'm actually going to do is point it towards the Alpha Juno 1. I already have some nice strings on there, so that's going to be my sound for the chords. So how do we set this up? We'll choose VST output here. And then it's a matter, at least in Cubase, of pointing the output of the Captain Chords plugin to the input of the MIDI channel or VST channel that you want. Here I want to use the Roland Alpha Juno, and on 17 we have the Captain Chords MIDI out. So now it should be connected to the Alpha Juno. It's already quite nice, but of course a little bit basic. So what we're going to do is increase the complexity of the chords. We can do that here. It's basically adding extra notes to the chords, making them more clustered and more complex, which for me means more interesting. I'm just going to turn it up all the way. Let's listen to the first one. Yep, let's do it for all the chords. 7. And let's check it out. Let's quickly show a few settings. With space, you can increase or decrease the note length. Strum, you can make the chord strum like you're playing a guitar. And swing is, of course, something you can use to add some groove to the chords. This really depends on the kind of rhythm you're playing. Now I'm using the basic on chord change. This means every chord change we have new notes, but you can also go for simple divisions of the beat. 1 second notes, 1/4, 1/8, 16th, or more interesting complex rhythms like this. In my case, I just want to play a nice slow path, so on every chord change is exactly what we need. So let's edit this a bit to make this our own. The first chord could be more interesting, I think, and here on top you can choose between all the possible chords that are in key with G minor. I think I'm going to go for 7th. Let's listen. And then the second chord could be a little bit more exciting. I think I'm going to go for a suspended chord. Maybe here the G sus2. This makes it a kind of a transitional chord, which is always great to raise some tension. Let's listen to this. Starts to go somewhere. I think this third chord could also be quite interesting if we suspended it. So let's choose also the F sus2. Let's listen. And this final chord, I'm going to add it manually, just playing it by ear to see if I can make it a little bit more interesting and really unique, my own. Something else I want to mention is that you can actually change the inversions in a very easy way. Now it's set to minimize leap, so it's going to change as little notes as possible to go to the next chords. But you can also go for the first inversion, second inversion, the default triad, or once again here, minimize leap, and that's usually one of the inversions that fits the best. This one, I'm going to edit now, so let's maybe change this. Let's listen if this works already. I think this sounds pretty interesting, at least a good starting point. Let's generate a bass line using Captain Deep. So when I open up Captain Deep, it's asking me if I want to connect it to the instance of Captain Chords I already have running. This is something I want because that way I can have Captain Deep generate a bass line that automatically follows the chords. And if I'm going to edit the chords later, then the bass line will automatically change accordingly. So let's connect this. You see it already generated a bass line. First, I'm going to make sure that the output is going to the PolyBrute. There I have a nice bass sound ready. So same thing again, VST output. And then I'm going to point the output of Captain Deep to the PolyBrute MIDI channel. Now let's listen. I think the bass notes sound pretty great, but every offbeat is a little bit boring. We can choose out of lots of different rhythm combinations. Let's try out a few until I find something that I like. I think this is already pretty nice, but let's hear what other options we have. We have the shape option here, and with that we can change the shape of the bass literally. In this case it was set up to follow the chords, so it's going to follow the root note. You can make it have the opposite movement. That sounds like this. Or minimum adjustment, that means it's going to change as little notes as possible, but still follow the chord. Or basically stay on the root all the time. The way I'm going to build a track, I'm actually going to use several of these options. So I'm going to stay on the root note in the beginning of the track probably, and then later on just follow the chords. Now let's create a melody. For this we're going to use the Captain Melody plugin. The first thing it asks if we want to connect it to the Captain Chords instance we already have. This is something you do want, because that way it's going to generate the melody based on the chord progression we already created. So we're in G minor, you can even see the chords here. Let's quickly go through the tools you have here. You have a pencil to basically throw in notes yourself, a move tool to move them around, brush you can literally draw them in, import you can use to import a MIDI file, and Magic Record you can use to play notes on your keyboard yourself and record them into Captain Melody. But we're going to look at the tool that I didn't mention yet, and that's the Idea tool. Let's first clear this. What does this do? We can basically define a region, and within that region it's going to generate a random melody that does fit within the chords. So I'm going to select this range. That's the first two chords, and you see it immediately generated a melody that should follow the chord progression. Let's listen what it sounds like. It could be a good starting point, but let's give it a few more tries. I think it's a little bit too busy, but we can take care of that. We go to rhythm here and we decrease the density to 5 notes. So it plays a lot less notes in the melody. Length triplets, that's all good. The shape, we can make it a little bit less steppy. So that means how much it's going to jump up and down. And the leap is how far the jumps will be. But I'm going to leave that all around 50%. The direction is going to be random. That's okay. Let's generate some new ideas and let's listen to it. This sounds quite useful actually. I'm going to edit it a little bit to make it exactly the way I want. So let's use the move tool to change a few notes. Let's listen to this. Now let's duplicate this to the other two chords. It's quite simple, just press duplicate here and let's listen to that. Let's change this note. And that's really nice and usable actually. I think this is going to be the melody that we'll use for the track. So now we have something that we're happy with and we want to use in the track. We can export the MIDI very easily out of the plugin. We can basically take this clip and drag and drop it into Cubase. And now we can shut down the plugin and let's look at the MIDI. And there we have the melody that was created. Now we're going to do the same for the chords. So basically drag and drop it on the Alpha Juno track. And there we have them. And the same for the bass line. Drag and drop the generated bass line on the PolyBrute channel. So now we have the MIDI in Cubase. One small thing left to do is quantize this a little bit, so it's in the groove that I want. I always use a little bit of a swing quantize here, so basically selecting everything, Q, and U, so it shuffle a little bit. So now I have created these three elements with the help of the Captain plugins. I have a good base, a good foundation to build a whole track on. Today's video is not really about the production process of that whole track, but still I'm going to quickly touch upon what else I did. So, well, first of all, we have the chords from the Alpha Juno, we have the bass line from the PolyBrute, and a melody that is going to be played on the Rhodes of Arturia. Besides that, I added some beats programmed on the Roland TR-8S, and later on in the track I also drop a nice arpeggio bassline that I created on the Jupiter XM using the SH101 model, and I layered this with a nice plucky MS-20 sound. Besides that, I added a few of reversed cymbals and some effects that I programmed earlier using the Yamaha TX-81Z. And then it's basically building this track and building the tension. So we're going to keep the bass line straight in the beginning and then slowly filtering the chords. And then eventually I start following the chords with the bass line, then introduce the melody, and then it's basically just flow with the chord progression and the nice vibe of the track. And at this point, it's basically following the inspiration that was triggered with generating some good ideas using the Captain plugins. It can really help you come up with some ideas that you wouldn't think of yourself at that moment, or maybe you can't really think of yourself because you're not that great at chord progressions or melodies. It can really help you at any skill level, either to trigger your inspiration and then from that point you can take over yourself like I just did, or to give you a really solid foundation that works musically that you can build upon. I'll play the final result in a bit, but first I want to say thank you to Mixed in Key for sponsoring these videos. If you want to check out their Captain plugins yourself, I'll leave a link in the video description below. Let's listen to the track. And that's it again for today. If you want more like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to be notified as soon as a new video goes online, click the bell button. Bye bye.